Hi, as I noted in recent posts, I have a new Logitech headset which I use for work, online work, and also my website entries. So I can use these computer game entries as tests for more academic posts, but often these more silly posts I do actually achieve more page views. So, going to see how this looks, trying moving the screen a little closer than I did with the Microsoft software. So this is debut professional NCH software, which I paid for because, as I noted before, Microsoft deleted the software that comes with their Microsoft webcam. So Microsoft webcam, Logitech headset, microphone, want to see how it works. Actua Soccer 3, 1998. 2-game series, 10 minutes each. I'm a fictional team named Isle of Man. I designed the uniforms, the kits, if you like them, within the rules of the game, and I'm playing Everton. First game. So the headset does not allow outside noise like the old microphone did, but the internal sound is better, so we'll see how this works. I need it for work. And of course, I also want to have reasonable videos with my websites, my blogs. Hopefully not like this in a sense of here I am recording off a screen. I'd rather be able to just record off this computer as it plays the game, but this is an older computer I'm playing the game on. So the computer I'm recording this on is a Windows 10, and the game is being played on an old version of Windows from years ago, Windows XP, but it still works. I've been playing this game now for almost 20 years and I enjoy it, and Howard and I are both cheap in that context. And we don't like buying new stuff. I'm playing it for a year and getting rid of it. So I've been watching a lot of news about all the hurricanes down in the US. Have a couple of friends, and then of course Jeff Jenkins down in Florida. Prayed for them, wished them well. Jeff's been a loyal friend online, loyal blogger friend. He's probably one of my bigger page viewers. One good thing about the negative news about the hurricanes, and again I do pray for people, is that at least people aren't talking about Trump so much. I think people are too focused on who the government is or who leads the government. As Christians, regardless of the government, and yes, I want a government where I have as many rights as possible and the church has as many rights as possible. Regardless of the government, we have to serve the Lord. and we have limited time and energy. And I think oftentimes too much time is spent, if one is a biblical Christian and a disciple, on political stuff, which is not worth the time. My focus as a Canadian is, what does the Lord want me to do for the gospel? And right now, I'm part of a mega church. I'm a member and also part of a church plant. For example, this Sunday I'm attending with my friend John. I invited 2 barbecues. Are we as Christianized as the United States? Absolutely not. But I think the power and influence of the Christian church in the U.S., the evangelical church, the fundamentalist church, although it's declining, it's still a lot more in Canada. But part of the problem is that political power, because I think, yes, part of it is people just want to maintain church rights, but some of it is leaders in the church and just parishioners, people that attend, members of churches, not necessarily leaders. They want to keep the influence of the church and the influence of God's law, and those are good things, but when that gets in the way of reaching people with the gospel by being good examples and just preaching to people, then it's a problem. So personally for myself, yes, when Canadian government was going to bring in same-sex marriage here, but we knew it was going to happen, I wrote a letter to government stating a compromise would be civil unions. Now, would I want civil unions? No, I would like to see just biblical marriage. But it's a secular state, very secular state. But I don't think those political issues, although I will get involved, is what the Lord wants me to spend my time on. And yes, abortion is wrong, and we can support ministries which try to persuade people in a gospel way, women not to have these abortions, but for my ministry, and I think for Christian disciples ministry and in general, the focus is definitely biblical Christianity, not these political things. I think we should maintain our rights. For me, I don't want to be in politics. Some biblical Christians, God might call them into politics. But even if they do, I think their focus should be similar to mine, and that's maintaining our rights. Our rights so that we can proclaim the gospel efficiently. Doesn't mean I don't care about these political issues or care about abortions. I do care about abortions. But I can't force my way of thinking on people that want to abort their unborn child and want to deny it's even human. Of course it's human. Even if there was no spirit, it would still be human. It's just biologically human. What else is it? It's just not genetic material. That's nonsense. But, as I said to a relative years ago, when he was saying how a woman has a right to abortion, I said, what that argument is about is because it's a society that fornicates and has adultery, it has to have their freedom to have abortions. Otherwise, it can't have the freedom to fornicate at will and have adultery at will. So really, people don't care if it's human. The embryo, the fetus inside the woman, they don't care if it's human. That's not what it's about. They don't care about the science. It's about a worldview that has a more liberal sexuality, that has fornication and adultery, whether heterosexual or homosexual. It has to have abortion. I don't agree with it, but to the same extent, I don't think it's my ministry to focus on that. And I think if Christians do focus on that, it has to be gospel focused. Not a political focus to try to gain more power or keep it. Another thing, I have a good friend that mentioned the other day that he's not a theologian. He's a smart guy, but he's not a theologian. He's theological, but he's not a theologian. But he's reformed. He's smart. He's got a lot of common sense. But he said it wouldn't be very difficult to debunk someone's views that are libertarian, as if, it's not very difficult. And I said, well, why doesn't he do it? Why doesn't he write articles? And if it's not difficult to do that kind of work, why doesn't it happen more often? Why don't more Christians do this? Why are so many people not reformed? That's because it's not so simple. It takes a lot of education, and most of all, it takes the guidance of God. It takes the guidance of the Holy Spirit. One afternoon, months ago, in my opinion, I properly debunked someone's views on libertarian free will, a well-known speaker who many people would just think is way smarter than me. And I'm sure he is in some ways. But the reason I could do that, and I actually shared it with one of the pastors at the megachurch, and he says I'm a genius, but what I have is by God's grace. But it's by God's grace that we can know the truth about free will or whatever. But it doesn't make it easy. I can write different articles, difficult articles, because I've done it for years. Bob Ross mentioned on Joy of Painting one time, someone asked him how he can paint a difficult painting in 20 minutes. It's because he did 20 years of work. Well, that's how I can write some of these articles, because I started studying the Bible when I was 13. I started academia when I was 22, 23, and I've been working at it. And my articles aren't completely original. I just build on these things I learned. But something like symbolic logic, more difficult for me because I have to learn it. And I wasn't a math major. I mean, sure, I have the academic ability now to probably do pretty well at a lot of types of academia. Not be a PhD, but just I know how to study now. You study for an exam for 40 hours. You memorize short-term everything in the textbook. You memorize all the prof's notes, and you'll get at least a B, if not close to 100%. But symbolic logic, because I'm not a math background person other than high school, it's a lot of work. But I think probably the more symbolic logic I learn, the more I'll be able to do math. And when I look at algebra now, it makes more sense, or calculus, because I've done symbolic logic. But it takes work. And I won't know symbolic logic as well as many classical or classic philosophers. And I've always stated I'm not a classic philosopher. I'm a philosopher of religion. I have, I think, one philosophy class I took at Trinity Western Canadian Baptist Seminary, Acts. That was philosophy of religion. And the reason I can call myself a philosopher of religion is because an MPhil and PhD, that's about 500 pages of research in it. That's worth several courses on philosophy of religion. And I was forced to read science journals and philosophy journals, and I was forced to learn all the lingo. And by the time I'd finished my doctorate, it was as much philosophy of religion as philosophical theology. But I'm not a classical philosopher. And I did a little bit of symbolic logic with Plantinga, but I'm doing more. But the point in all this is it's not easy. It seems easy. So I think maybe my friend, he means well, but when he reads someone like one of these Driscoll or someone, Pastor Driscoll, he thinks, well, because these guys break it down, it's so easy. It's not easy. It takes years and years and years and years of work. And then you can still be wrong. And that's why there's so many godly Christians, in my opinion, that are right about the atonement and the resurrection, but they're wrong about free will. And that's not as important. Free will isn't a salvation thing. But they have the salvation idea right, but how it exactly works, or they're farther away than, say, someone that's reformed is. None of us know exactly how it works except God. So I will say it's not easy to debunk someone that's smart, that's free will. You have to do a lot of study. And it took me 12 years to get to the point where I could do a doctorate in that subject. And for example, what I wrote on a Dr. R&M post the other day about necessity, about something being necessary and contingent, and how I tie that into the problem of evil. I wouldn't have done that when I was doing my doctorate. That's something just further philosophical research. And that's where reading things like Langer and Perry philosophy text, it helps. So things may, when you see someone else do them, write them, it may seem that it's easy to do, but it's not. And the thing with my type of work, my friend said the same thing, which I agree with, is that it's the more we know, the more we know we don't know a lot, and we're ignorant, and it's true. And the work I do, it's very easy to make a mistake. But I do edit, and problem with Blogger is I can't really see how it's going to turn out until I publish it. And this is why there's a lot of edits after publishing, because it's like no matter how many edits I do before publishing, it's not as evident. Now, if I make major edits, I will make a note in a post, but there's minor edits like period and semicolon, comma, I don't. Or sometimes I'll do an addition. So academia is not easy, and it's not easy to disagree with someone. It's not easy to do technical work. So Isle of Man doesn't actually have a club. It's just kind of joking around. I thought years ago, I think I did these about 15 to 20 years ago, I started making these teams. Isle of Man was one of the original ones. And then I took them off as a club and then brought them back. So that'd be kind of cool to have some place that'll never have a club, have a major club with a stacked team. 150 million pounds you're allowed with these editor teams. Which was a lot back in 1998. So this is a good result. Everton is pretty tough. So one of the keys is I put a good midfielder in net and I jack his stats up, because this game seems to cheat with the star goalkeeper or the star striker, and they don't play as well, so I use someone else as the star striker and someone else often as the goalkeeper. Now, all going well, I'll change kits into the blue kits for the home game. But you never know with this game. No, no uniform change. Like I said, you don't know. Anyway, the all you have to do is reverse the white into blue, and those stripes in the middle, they're just red mainly. It's just a reversed kit. That's what it would look like. This is goofy. I should be wearing my blue because they're wearing some kind of yellow, and it's difficult to see the difference between the clubs. That was a nice one. So what I do with these teams is Zidane was considered probably the best player in the world at the time. They just won the World Cup, France. And then 2 years later they won Euro. So I have some of the top stars, and I have some other good players, and I build them up, and they end up big stars on this game anyway. As I said, the non-goalies tend to be better goalkeepers if you get a really good player. Like Zidane is a very good keeper. But if I put him in net, then he's not out, is he? I actually have two teams now where I have two versions of Zidane and I have one as a keeper, and they're very difficult to beat. I like having a game for 20 years. There, the guy wouldn't move. I wanted to move towards him, he wouldn't move. Then he moved right by him. I'll give him the goal, but see there? It's kind of a cheat, but I'll give it to them. But I wanted to move towards the guy, and he didn't. For one goal in 2 games, it doesn't bother me. No one's there for my back pass. Computer's starting to work against me. There was no foul. All I was doing was going for the ball. So I've been playing Yahtzee a lot with my mom, who I home care for, that lives downstairs, to help with her mental capacity, because she's basically elderly. When I started playing with her Yahtzee, I hadn't played it in years. thought the game was from the 90s, but it actually says 82, so probably played it in the 80s as a kid and then a bit in the 90s, but played it a few years ago with Chucky and my nephew and my mom, but not very much. Anyway, I had to relearn it. And with Mom's ailment, her mind, she can't remember a lot of things, but she was winning like 60% of the time because I was doing everything for her other than rolling the dice. But I would get a little ticked when if I would get upset I didn't get something, she'd laugh at me. So I said, well, you're going to have to start learning this. So she is kind of learning the game, and she wins about 50% of the game still. She makes some mistakes, but her mind's being exercised. Another thing is she struggles with these UTIs, and a nurse suggested the C or B tablets. She actually suggested C, but what works is the B and C tablets to this dissolve in water, and they work really well. Better than any of the meds suggested. So that's one medical tip I received from a Ridge Meadows Hospital nurse. It's really helped. I think my mom might just live longer because of that. Because UTIs can really shorten a life. And she's been in the hospital twice with UTIs. But ever since she's been on these dissolvable B and C tablets, I've gone from 4 sets of laundry a day to 1. Because when I'm here I have to do laundry and cook meals, etc. And she doesn't smell as bad with the urine, and she isn't soaking the soaker pads as much. So all the doctors didn't know, except this one nurse, because it works with her dad. Yeah, no one's back. That's a cheap goal too. Where's my defenders? I don't like this formation. I don't like how the goalkeeper's played. Classic. I've complained about this game before, and Chucky has too. For a human being to score, you have to work really hard. You don't get too many flukers unless you get a lob. For the computer to score, and it works with this game and UEFA 99-2000, they just have to make your checks not work. It's like they win by making you not play as well. Maybe it's just restrictions of the time. Like I've said before, if I had time and money, I'd like to redo this game. It's got some really good bones to it. It just needs to be, of course, updated for 2017 and get rid of some of the cheating. If you score, you score because you beat the other player. That was sweet. How they're there, as in the computer is favoring Everton. That's how I figured it would happen in the first game. But I picked Everton because I know the computer likes Everton. Probably one of the programmers was a supporter. So they get breaks, but it's cheating. Like, let's see a goal where they actually beat me, where, you know, I go for the guy and they actually not make me miss, but actually goes around me. Now I have a defender in net. I took the midfielder out. Now we're even, red card each. Barnby Jones messed up. So I'm going to go to bed, and then I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. to watch Arsenal play, and then 9:30 Manchester United. See, that's a complete cheat. I'm not even going to count that goal. I mean, look how the guy's covered. Checked, twice, 3 times. Like, there's no way he can score. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a cheat. I remember playing with Howard, and Jamie would watch, and Jamie would say, "Oh, you just don't want to lose." And then he would try, and then "Oh, I checked you. Well, he didn't believe what Howard and I were saying. Like, we're not going to make it up. If we get beaten, we're going to say we got beaten. I mean, our last play, I did not get beaten. I checked the guy 3 times. Will I score a goal like that? No. I have to watch when I score. I'm nowhere near the guy. I have to be in the clear to score. They don't have to be in the clear to score. Like, look how open I am when I score. Look how open they are when they're not usually open. They're cheating. Look how open I am there. I have to beat them to score. They don't have to beat me, generally. So I don't like about it. But other than that, it's excellent. But the other game's the same way. The UEFA 99-2000 is the same way. The original version of this game, even worse. Actua Soccer from 1996. Which again I'd like to play on here, but I can't because it won't work. Played on the Mac. I still have my Mac from that time. But it's hard to get it to work. It's actually in the sunroom. I have a silly sunroom. So we bought this place in 2002. Apparently it was originally built in 1986, and it was built with a deck, right? And I guess my deduction is the Strata Council got rid of the deck because it was getting dirty and all this, right? Because we get tons of rain here. This isn't like most parts of the US. This is more like, southern England. So what they did is they closed it up, but they didn't insulate it. They didn't create a room. They created a useless space. So when we moved in here, and my mom was a little bit more able-bodied and able-minded, we had lunch in there once in the summer, and it was too hot. She never went up there again in 15 years. What it is, in the summer, it can get up to, I would think, 35, 40 degrees up there. Too hot. And in the winter, it's like you could keep your beer cold there. It's like a cooler. And if I don't move to Europe or whatever for work long term, I will try to invest in upgrading that and fixing that, making it, at least a decent room. Like, why create a room that's useless? I mean, I'd rather have a dirty deck. I can clean it. At least you go out in the summer and relax and get fresh air. Get a little bit of fresh air with the windows open, but it's too hot or too cold. I made Chucky play Actua Soccer because, like I said, the Max out there, it's actually a UMax clone. I made him play it one night. It was cold, and he was complaining. He was whining, "Oh, too cold." And I think we played there another time, and he was complaining about how hot it was. To make this game 11-2 because I don't agree with that card. I don't agree with the next goal either. 11-2. Giving me the card was just a way to cheat. There I went for the ball, wouldn't let me get it. It's the difference between not letting me get it because it makes me not play well and beating me to the ball. That's the difference. It's worse when there's two players, and we've had, when Manson played too, we had 3 players playing. We had yellow player, blue player, green player, players 1, 2, and 3, and boy, we were so slow with 3 players. We played against a computer. That was so difficult. Before I moved to the UK, we played some tournaments. I played one major tournament, and I won that one. But I was the only one really playing the game, so. That was before we had all these cheat teams that I found out about, and also these editor teams which I created. I actually played with England, and I won the tournament. I think Chucky was Italy. That was like 1999. That's like 18 years ago. 3 red cards. 14-2 in my books. You're right there. That's bogus. I won't count this either. Or look at this. See what I mean? So he goes for the ball. He's checked right there. All I do is go for him. I didn't take him down at all, and it calls a penalty. It's just so they can get a free goal. That's all. It's cheating. I won't count this. This is the kind of thing when you're playing against a person, you end up fighting. Well, I didn't foul you. And then he wouldn't let me get to the ball. See, I grabbed it, wouldn't let me get it. So I would have had to foul him to get the ball, probably. They make it so that to get the ball you have to foul the guy, like with a slide tackle. But if you do that, you'll get a penalty. Anyway, still 14-2 in my books. Have a good evening.